Thank you to our sponsors, Little Voices. Are you a teacher with a passion for drama, music and performance, or feeling stuck in the classroom? Little Voices gives you the chance to step into a role where you can truly inspire young minds through the arts. This is a company I know well and admire. They're passionate about child development, highly rated and genuinely transformative. With small group teaching, a focus on confidence and creativity, with the opportunity to guide children through Lambda qualifications, you can make a real impact. Plus, with the support of a nationwide franchise network behind you, you can run your own successful business, doing what you love while teaching in a way that truly fits your life.
Hello, and welcome to the Pit Pony podcast with myself, Sharon Corley,
and me, Sarah Dunwood,
in which we talk to teachers from all walks of life who exited the classroom from what they thought was a job for life and thrived on the other side of teaching. Coming up in this episode,
the government illegally moved everybody from the final salary to the career average scheme back in 2015. It was discriminatory because they did it based on your date of birth. So some people were moved in 2015, some were moved in 2016, all based on how old they were. And that is illegal. That was found to be illegal, and that was the McLeod judgment. The government was told in 2019 that it was illegal and they had to put it right. And by putting it right, they were given essentially 3 years to put it right. We are now more than 3 years into that process, and they have not yet got it sorted for everybody. In fact, they've got it sorted for about 20%.
Hello, and welcome to our latest episode of the Pit Pony podcast. Now, anybody who is a member of the Life After Teaching Facebook group will see the name of this episode and immediately recognise a friend of Life After Teaching, David Fountain. And it is glorious to actually spend time in his company today. And David's story is, he is a typical pit pony. Straight from school, little bit of a break after university, but into teaching. Stayed in the same school for 28 years. Taught maths, business studies, science. And his exit is not a dramatic one. It was one that he took after much consideration, but I think he was becoming a little bit tired and jaded, but we will get into that when we talk to him. But it is glorious to spend time with you, David. Can't wait to hear your story. Can't wait to pick your brains. So welcome, David Fountain, from the classroom to tell us what it is you do today.
Thank you very much, Sharon. What I spend most of my time doing at the moment is looking after people who need help with their pension schemes, particularly the teachers' pension scheme. What I found is that so many people don't understand how the scheme works. I didn't understand how it works. And we are losing a lot of money if we don't understand the rules of the scheme. So many of us thought that our pensions were so simple. If we kept paying in, it would get better and better and better. So long as you kept paying in, it would get better. And with the final salary scheme, that wasn't the case. And so what I spend my time now doing, I spend time basically sitting on the internet if I'm not out playing golf, which is my other love. If I'm not out playing golf, then I will sit on the internet and I will answer people's questions and I will guide them to things I think they probably should know. I can't give anybody advice. I can't give financial advice. So I can't say, you must do this. But I can look at their situation and say, have you thought about this element of the scheme and how it's going to affect you? Because if your best salaries are 10 years ago, then your final salary pension could actually be losing money rather than increasing. And there are things you can do. So I can point out, this is something you can do. What I can't do is say, do this.
Okay, got you. And interestingly, David, you were at the same school for 28 years. Okay.
Yes.
Did the pension and your pension have any impact on being able to leave? Was it a lever from which you were able to say, right, I can go now because of
absolutely.
Pension?
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Well, it got to the point where something happened in our lives. My wife's parents were getting ill and we needed to work out how to look after them. They were absolutely terrified of going into hospital. And so making sure that they could stay in their home was a key factor for us. And the school was very good. They allowed my wife to go off during her free periods and to disappear early to go and look after her father. Her mother died, and then her father was alone. He was going deaf and blind and needed a lot more care in order to allow him to stay in his own home. And so we looked at, could we afford to leave? Could we afford to finish and go? And essentially we said, look at the numbers, let's do the figures. And we laid out our budgets and we worked out what the money coming in was and what the money going out was. And then we practiced living on that. And we were able to live on one salary quite easily. And at this point we said, well, what about the pension? When can we take the pension? Because I was 51 at the time, my wife was 53. So we didn't have immediate access to the pensions. But we started looking at what the pensions would be and realized that doing another year, we would think, stay in. The pension's great. You've got to stay in. You must stay in. But when we looked at the figures, what we found was if I worked another year, I was adding something like £700 to my pension. So yes, working another year, brilliant. I got a salary. So, £45,000, £50,000. A pension's never going to replace that kind of income. But by working another year, I was only adding £700. And I looked at that. I thought, well, if I leave, if I finish, I've got 24 hours a day, 365 days a year that I could do something else. I could earn £700 doing a paper round. So what's the point of staying another year so that after a year, I've got £700 more coming in? And I had other business. I set up other businesses that I ran in the evenings and after schools and things that would allow me to have some income. And so it gave me what I like to think as my safety net, because I left at 51. And so I had to get from 51 to 55 in order to be able to get to the point where I could take my pension. And so I had enough in my bank account to say, well, I can risk doing that. If we can live on a bare minimum, and we practiced living on a bare minimum, we took our salaries between us. I mean, we were on something like 100,000 between the two of us. We took nearly all of that and put it into a separate account. And we practiced living on what our pension would be. And we did it, and we did it quite easily. And we were astonished. Yes, we did all kinds of things where we would practice. We'd do taste tests. So, I was a bit of a food snob. If Heinz tomato ketchup wasn't in the restaurant, I would make my mother take me to another restaurant. I would not eat at a restaurant that didn't have Heinz. If it had those squeezy red bottles with vinegary, no, couldn't stand. I was a food snob, absolute food snob. So yes, we practiced living. We did taste tests. We did all kinds of things about lowering our bills, lowering our expenditures, and working out what we could live on. What was the absolute minimum we could live on? And we were shocked. We were absolutely shocked. We had this 100,000 coming in, and we were able to live on less than 10,000. And so we were putting this money to one side, and we said, well, okay, that means we can get to the point where we've got the savings and we can live on this. I think bonkers. We said, what, 2 years? We can do it in 2 years. And then we suddenly turned around and said, hang on a minute. All that money we've been putting into we've been putting to one side and locking away and not even looking at, because we were trying to practice live on. Could we not live on that money for a year or two? And so we went, well, yes. So we can go this year. And so we did. We suddenly realized that what was keeping us in the job was the money. We both enjoyed teaching. I mean, we were very, yes, I was getting exhausted. Yes, I was getting very frustrated with the way the government was fiddling and faddling around with the curriculums and every time they changed the syllabus, which was virtually I taught IT and computer science at the end of my career. And the changes in the final year spend that I don't think I taught the same A-level syllabus or Key Stage 3 syllabus. Sorry, Key Stage 3, not Key Stage, but Key Stage 5 syllabus. I don't think I taught the same syllabus for a consecutive 2 years for the last 5 years of my career. It was always changing. And every time they came and messed around with this and took something out and said, you can't do that and you've got to do this, it meant I had to go back and rewrite the Key Stage 4 curriculum. I had to go back and rewrite the Key Stage 3 curriculum just to make sure everything was feeding into what we could offer at Key Stage 5. And I was also, I was doing an Open University degree as well in computer science because I wanted to work out what my students were going on to next. And that wasn't changing. And so, yes, I was still trying to fiddle how all these things would fit together. I just got so fed up with that nonsense. Kids absolutely loved it. Teaching absolutely loved it. But the nonsense of having to do new schemes of work every year was wearing me down.
Yeah, that was fascinating to start with. And I'm going to take you back because I can almost picture the process that you and your wife went through. Sarah and I, a couple of years ago, as you may or may not know, did a Pit Pony video, which is where all of this came from. And in many respects, it's missing the glaringly obvious that's staring you in the face that I want to go back to with our listeners. Oh, and I'll unpick the part about what you said about the pension in a moment. There's lots to ask you there. But people in the main get on the phone to Sarah and I, and they'll say, what are your outgoings? I can't possibly leave. I can't draw my pension. And what's more, if I leave now, it will affect my pension and I can't leave. I'm the breadwinner. Or we don't. Sarah, people sometimes don't even know the basics of what is coming in and going out of the house. And they have gaslit themselves into believing, number one, that their salary is great. And number two, that they're totally and utterly reliant on it. Haven't they?
Yeah, I think take away the salary is great because it's great on paper, but when you actually tot up the hours, and that's a whole drum that I could bang on about for a long time. But it is that thing about knowing your bottom line. I think I've said it in a podcast once before. There's a difference when you suddenly find that you have no job rather than it being a choice that you are leaving your job. That's a very different place to be, because in my situation, I think I dropped from 65k gross to 0, literally. And so when you're in that situation and you are the breadwinner and your other half is being marginally exploited in terms of what they were being paid for their very well qualified trade, you suddenly have to look at what you are spending. And I think I worked out that we were spending something like £600 a month on takeaways. I mean, purely because there was no time. And actually 600 a month is 150 a week. And actually, if you then top that down, that was a Domino's once a week for 3 people. That's easily 50 quid. And then a Chinese takeaway for a teenage lad, a burly builder and me was another 50 quid. It tots up so quickly. And I think we sit in this world of, well, I can't possibly not earn this amount of money, but I don't know what I'm actually spending it on. And that's the critical bit. I loved what you said, David, about practicing living on that budget.
Well, for me,
Beautiful.
we went through several things. I had a friend who came back. He'd taken a year out and went to Australia, and he came back absolutely penniless. And he was trying to figure out, he was doing evening job. He came in, he got a cleaning job at the school. And he got a job at the weekends working at the docks. He was working every hour of the day to try and get this extra money coming in. And I said, have you sat down and have you looked at your outgoings? Have you looked at what you're spending money on? And he said, no, I can't. I said, well, let's start. And I went there and we sat down and we did the big ones: home insurance, car insurance, those things that are going to save you £200 or £300 just because you've been with the same company all the time. And he went, yeah, it's £200. I said, right, now you've saved £200 on your home insurance. Was that worth spending an hour looking at? You're down the docks working for £10 an hour. You've just earned £200 for an hour's work of looking at your finances. And I said, next step, that's the big ones. You've saved £200. Does that feel good? Yes, it does. £4 a week. How about cutting your weekly shopping by £4 a week? If you can cut £4 a week off your shopping, you have just made that same £200 a year saving. And so worth spending those extra minutes, those extra time, working out where you can make those things. I mean, going back to your student days, I went through the point where, tin of baked beans, would it last me 3 meals? Could I get that tin of baked beans to last me three days rather than just
as long as they were Heinz beans. I have good memory.
I'm afraid when I went to I did come out of the food snobby bits at some point, but I would go into the supermarkets and I'd go down the meat aisle, barely afford it. Sometimes I would have OXO cubes and pretend it was a stew, but I would go down the meat aisle and I'd look at the sell by dates. And on that day, I would go back, because on that day, that's when that meat might have been cut to half price. It was, and I'd go back late in the evening. So to see what was available, what was cheap at the time. So we think back to the student days.
If I may, David, I think what goes on here, there are so many pieces of advice that you can give people about being frugal, about looking at the bottom line and that kind of thing. But I think what's important to remember is this. Our listener sometimes isn't in that moment of clarity where they've got a 2-year plan, or they've decided that they want to do this together with a supportive partner. We tend to find that people who are struggling can't see the wood for the trees. They can't sit down with this level of clarity. So this is why it's a really important episode, because this is your wake-up call. And one of the biggest things I will talk about, do your bottom line, really go through your last 3 months worth of salary, or actually work out if your husband or your wife's salary can support you to get out, blah, blah, blah. But then I always say, where are you up to with your teacher's pension? And what I find stunning is one of the false gods that keeps teachers in the job so much, apart from you can finish at 3 o'clock and your 13 weeks holiday a year, is this wonderful, wonderful teacher's pension that they are working towards while simultaneously knowing a bugger all about. They just have this in their head that goes, teacher's pension, teacher's pension. Oh, it's brilliant. Tell me about your teacher's pension. And they don't even know and understand what the teacher's pension scheme is, and importantly, what it means to them. Do you find that similar, David?
I do. But I also realise that I'm in a very privileged position, that I was able to get through those years of 15% mortgage interest rates and being the bank going into the red every month. I was able to get through that point and keep my pension payments going. It's very easy for me to sit there and say, you should keep the pension going. It is very valuable. There are certainly so many people who don't understand how valuable the pension scheme is, because they're putting £5,000, £6,000 a year into the pension scheme, and they don't really understand what they're going to get back from it at the end. I mean, my basic bottom line is, you should, if you live to an average age, get back 3 times what you pay in. So it is a cracking investment scheme. Trouble is, if the alternative is you being evicted or not being able to put food on the table, then that £400, £500, £600 a month that you're paying into the pension scheme looks like an easy fix. And it can be. I do get worried. And I've gone into schools and I've talked through people the figures, and I went into one school in London where, obviously London, high rental rates, high cost of living. And the head teacher had called me and they said, I'm worried. I said, I'm worried about this group of ECTs I've got. 80% of them have opted out of the pension scheme. And we went and had a chat with them. And I said, well, yes, you need the money, but are you aware of what you're giving up to do that? Yes. I mean, by all means, if you're going to be evicted, you're going to be homeless, if you're going to lose your job because you're going to go through those sort of stresses, then I understand. But do bear in mind what you're giving up by leaving the pension scheme, because it is so valuable. And those early years particularly are so much more valuable because you're paying less. Generally, you're on a lower wage. You're 30,000. It's going to be paying 7.4%. Your head teacher's paying 11% for the same stuff. But you're going to be giving up the security to allow you to leave that much earlier when you do finish. And essentially, if you can pay now, you will get back 3 times what you pay in, because that is how the system works. The idea is that you paying this money is designed to pay out from your state pension age until you die. And average life expectancy in the UK, 83, 84 for teachers. So you can expect to get 3 times, and the value of it is incredible. But if you're having to keep the bailiffs from chucking you out on the street, I can understand why it's an easy fix. Try not to. I mean, I mustn't give advice, but if you can stay out for as little as time as possible. The trouble is, once you go out, that extra money comes. It's very easy to get used to it, and not to be that disciplined to get back to working on what you can afford.
So you come out, you've done this, you're doing what you're doing, you've got another business. How did greatness get thrust upon you where you've ended up with a Facebook group What's gone on, David? How come the Teachers Pension Teacher to Teacher UK Facebook group has become the monster that it is?
I think because people are confused and they're looking for help. I mean, if we want to go through the history of this, when I first started looking for help, there was a brilliant resource. There was a fantastic resource. It was called the Times Educational Forums. I went on there and I found out all the things that I needed and should have learned when I first started the pension. Trouble is, what really got me, what got me going on this whole crusade, as it were, was I did all the figures. Once I knew what the rules were, I went back and worked out my career, and I looked back through my career and said, if I'd done this at that time, what would the result be? And the result is that I have going to lose, over my life, I'm going to lose £70,000 because I didn't understand the rules of how the scheme works. And that's me. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. And the Times Educational Forum, brilliant. Lots of people on there gave me the advice, told me about these rules, explained them to me. They were very patient. They let me answer my questions. I was able to gain from their knowledge, that's standing on the shoulders of giant stuff, because they were there. And I thought, well, that's brilliant. And then the Times deleted the whole lot. Just as COVID struck, they wiped this database. They wiped all the records. They destroyed and took off this wonderful resource that they had built. They owned it. They've got the rights to do whatever they like with it. It's theirs. But all of that knowledge was lost and gone, and we could no longer search it and do it. And I had all my notes on there, and I'd got lots of stuff saved and links that I'd saved that took me to all the important, and it was destroyed, gone. And so we got thousands of teachers who were using this, who were suddenly homeless, and they needed somewhere to go. And I'd started a YouTube channel before because there were some aspects of it that I think weren't well explained. And I thought, I'd read what the organisers, the administrators of the pension scheme had put out, and I thought, well, I can do a better job than that. I'm a teacher. I should be able to do a better job than that. And so I started doing the YouTube channel and doing explanation videos. Then COVID struck and the Times Education got deleted. And so I thought, well, we need another home. We need another home for this. And I don't want to allow this amount of knowledge to ever be destroyed again. I don't want somebody to come along and be able to wipe out decades of people putting stuff up there to help. And so I created a website. I created my website. And I looked at it, I thought, well, this is not very useful because it's got to have that two-way interaction. Facebook was just jumped out at me as being the obvious place to go. And so I set up the Facebook group. And it gradually picked up numbers, 1,000, 2,000, and it has exploded. And I'm very, very fortunate that a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago now, one of the ladies there, Fiona, jumped in and said, Dave, you're going to burn yourself out. You need some help with this. Please let other people take on some of those. And I've now got a team of 15 to 20 what we call experts. They don't like that term. They say, well, we can't have the term. I said, you are experts. You've got that. And we've selected those very carefully because they are a great, not only do they have the knowledge that I think you need to be able to harness, they've got the right attitude because they nurture, they will encourage, they will answer the same question 100 times a week without being betrayed that they are, come on, I've answered this 100 times a week already.
Yeah.
They know that when people come for help, they're in that desperate state. They, like you were saying earlier, they don't necessarily have that calm, close focus that allows them to analyze. They go, help! And we want to be there to say, yes, we can do that. And I know we've had a few who've come to us in really dire straits.
Fiona Fiona sends them back to me then. So we sort of we share custody of certain group members. And I think that's why it's been really powerful. We always signpost people from our group to your group because in a complete air of transparency, you have never monetized this, have you? You've not used it as a business.
No, there was when I first became interested in doing this. Yes, I did. I mean, I was losing my job. I was giving up my work, so I did look at whether or not I would become a qualified financial advisor, and I thought I could become a qualified financial advisor. And I started looking at the figures, and particularly with this aspect of taking a break to lock in your best years. And at that time, I thought, well, I could do this quite easily. I would take and I did do a spreadsheet. I said, if I can get about 1,000, 2,000 teachers to improve their pensions by 10%, which was dead easy considering the things I now knew, and I take 1% of that increase and they convert it into the extra pension they can do, I would be a millionaire inside 2 years. And I looked at that, I was like, really? And I thought to that, I said, well, and then I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, why didn't you take advice when you were younger? Why didn't you go looking with it? And it's because I was caught up in mis-selling scandals, the endowment mis-selling, other financial mis-sellings. I was persuaded to opt out of the pension scheme when I was first starting as a teacher. And I didn't want to be the person that would put a block in the way of other people getting help. Because if I take money for this, people are going to look at that and say, you're doing something for money. So you're going to take an advantage of me following your advice is going to give you money. You've got an angle. And I didn't want that to be something that would block people getting help, because that was one of the things that stopped me getting help. I do get.
Sorry, David, you are, if I can just come in at this point, it is so important. You are singing from our hymn sheet. The same with Sarah and I with Life After Teaching. We ask for, like you would ask for a donation, for a charitable donation, we have started to ask if people can help support us, because we pay for the podcast ourselves. So, and it's that true philanthropy that goes on within Facebook. It is so easy to quickly see, like you said, the quick book and go, oh, actually, I could really monetize this. I could really start to make this work for me financially. And I just want to say thank you, David, because it takes a real strength of character to not go down that route when you started giving value for free and then realize you've now got a following. And I'm just really pleased.
There was no way that I just couldn't look at myself in the mirror and think, yeah, I'm going to be turning people away if for that reason. I mean, yes, my YouTube ads, YouTube is advertised, that money comes in, but all the money goes out to charity. We've got 3 and I subscribe to the pay it forward mentality, philosophy of life. There, if I can help somebody with my skills, then why don't I? Because it's going to make the world a better place. And if I can persuade them, I've helped you using my skills. Can you use your skills to help somebody else when you see them? You don't have to pay me back now. Later on, you might be walking down the street and you've got some skill that you suddenly see somebody needs a hand with something, and I can do that. And you step in and you do it for them. And yeah, fine. That's paid back, something like that. And frankly, to be honest, I think teachers have got so much credit in that kind of philosophy. How many teachers do you know have stayed for hours after school or come in before school to help a child in need or to help a family in need and stepped outside what their role is as a teacher? I go into teaching, and I was a head of year for 5 years within my role. And I would have children in my office who were suicidal. I was in a brilliant school. The head teacher was fantastic. We had one Ofsted when I was sat there with a child in my office who was suicidal. I was her person who she trusted and wanted to be with when this happened. There was a system that I would flag up to the office to say, I'm occupied and we need to have somebody go and cover my class. We had Ofsted in, and this system failed. It fell over. I was in my office with this person. I'd sent the message down. I fully expected that my class would have a teacher in front of them. After about 10 minutes into the lesson, this child was in a place where she said, I can go back to class now. Great, thanks. Give you a note. Here you go. Give that to your teacher. Walked into my classroom, Ofsted inspector at the back of the classroom. All my kids, they were brilliant. They knew my system. They knew I was ahead of year. They knew I would occasionally be out of the classroom. And they were working away. They knew what they had to do. The work was on the board already, prepared. They were getting on with it. I walked in, did the lesson. Ofsted inspector comes at the end and said, I've got to give you unsatisfactory because you were 10 minutes late. It said, kids learning, brilliant. They were doing all right. They got what you needed to do. You could see you've got a good relationship with them, but it's unsatisfactory. So of course I walked down to the head teacher's office and said, sorry, boss, I've got you an unsatisfactory on the list. And he said, what happened? I said, well, I'll explain what happened. He said, fine. That's exactly what I pay you to do. Don't worry about it. Yeah, we were in that wonderful, he had our backs all the way through. So that's why I stayed at the school 28 years.
Of course. And I just think it's fascinating listening to you. I could spend so much time in somebody's company with these values. David, let's do some golden nuggets, shall we, for anybody listening?
Ooh.
So I'm going to say to you, right, have a little bit of a head scratch. You talk to me about your team of non-experts. What kind of questions do they have to answer over and over and over again? What are your frequently asked questions on your group?
Well, the main one is the problem at the moment with getting the data from getting the McLeod stuff sorted, with the problems with getting money that's owed to them for the last 10, 15 years.
Treat me like an idiot, David. Start with what's McLeod? What's this? Really pitch
Right.
to the uneducated.
Oh, blimey. Right. The government illegally moved everybody from the final salary to the career average scheme back in 2015. It was discriminatory because they did it based on your date of birth. So some people were moved in 2015, some were moved in 2016, all based on how old they were. And that is illegal. That was found to be illegal. And that was the McLeod judgment. The government was told in 2019 that it was illegal and they had to put it right. And by putting it right, they were given essentially 3 years to put it right. We are now more than 3 years into that process, and they have not yet got it sorted for everybody. In fact, they've got it sorted for about 20%. A lot of people are not going to change what they get, but a lot of them are in limbo. They don't know how much they're getting. And the end result is that many of them are owed tens of thousands of pounds, and they're not getting the money. They have been sent pieces of paper. Sometimes the figures are right. Sometimes the figures are wrong. I've been through a whole series of questions where people are saying, these numbers don't seem to add up. And I've gone through those numbers with them and said, no, they don't. Here's what you need to go back and ask them to do again. And sometimes they've had to get the MPs involved. It hasn't quite got, I think, to the ombudsman point, because the ombudsman is so slow as well. But these people are owed money, and they've been told they're owed money. They've been told how much they've owed money. And some of them have even sent back their data 3 years ago, and they're still not been paid that money. Their numbers have gone back. They've been told, we owe you £10,000. And they go, oh, yes, please pay it to me. Where's my money? Where's my money? And that tends to be one of the repetitive themes of what we're seeing is how to, and a lot of people come and saying, my pension's going down. Why is it going down? And we still have to talk to them about how the final salary scheme works and why their pension might actually be going down rather than going up.
So why might their pension be going down?
It's all to do with inflation. If we take a UPS 3 salary of today, a UPS 3 salary today is 50,000. If you go back to 2003, yes, it was a lot lower in the 20s, but that would be equivalent to 58,000 now. You know, you're talking a whack and grey, is that 16% higher? And so you're looking at those, because our scheme uses what's called the final salary, but our final salary is allowed to go back over 10 years. You tend to find that people's salaries in 2015 are better than they are now, once you take into account inflation. And so as their best salaries are dropping out of the 10 years that they're allowed to use, their average salary is coming down in real terms and their pension can be dropping. They see this mostly when they look at their lump sums, because, of course, they're still adding to the pension. So their pensions are still going up, but their lump sum tends to be going down because the final salary element is now fixed in what it can have. And if you're losing the average salary, then that is what's going down. So they notice it mainly in the final salary, in the lump sum.
Wow. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
I'm in the I'm coming up on 53 in February, and I know I'm going to take mine at 55, but I also know that I need to have a conversation with David or one of his experts who are not official experts in order to, I think I've figured it out because I've read enough and I've used David's calculators that are in the group. I've watched his videos. I've kind of gone down that rabbit hole, but I think I want a bit of a sense check in terms of, is my decision making right? I'm in a slightly different position than most of the people I would suspect who are in David's group, in that I've been out of teaching for 6 years now. So I've got my salary break. I know what years my best salary is calculated on. And you're absolutely right. It's 2016, 17, 18 are my best years salary. So it's really interesting, but I know how complex it is. I've spent a lot of time looking at it. I'm not a stupid woman, and sometimes it blows my mind. And the teachers' pensions website has been notoriously flaky in the past 18 months as well, in terms of getting access to your stuff and all sorts of things. I know it's a source of massive frustration for current teachers and teachers who've exited, and people who are trying to plan around what they're doing, particularly people my age. It's a big can of worms at the moment, isn't it, David?
Oh, it's horrendous. I mean, actually, the teachers' pension scheme in England and Wales are doing better than some of the Scottish system. Some of them have not had statements in 2022. They're supposed to have a statement every year, and they've been without statements. Their organisation, their administrators were in front of the committee, the Scottish Parliament's committee last week, and they were talking about it. It's a complex problem, and I'm thinking, yes, and you're paid the big bucks to solve it. So frankly, I don't agree with a lot of what they say about it being complex. I think it's very simple. You've got a lot of data. Yes, you've got a lot of data, but the system, you've been using this system. Yes, the rules of the scheme are complex, but they're no different over the last 15 years in terms of what you do. You've been running a final salary scheme for decades. You've got the data, work out that system. You've got the final salary scheme. It's been running since 2015. You've got the data, you can plug it in and get those two figures. And all you got to do is put those side by side and say, what is the difference? Yes, there are some complexities, but there aren't that many extra complexities. And it's the extra ones that they really should be focusing on talking about that really wind me up. Sorry.
It's the disconnect, though, isn't it, between people? I mean, I'm about to get on a soapbox and climb down very quickly, but people who are decision makers, running within their own frameworks, but not actually understanding the impact or caring. Let's put it that, not understanding or caring about the impact that it has on real people and their finances and their decision making that's happening. I suppose that could apply to so many things, not just the teachers' pensions.
Oh yeah, we've got Parliament who've passed the law and told the government, you must go away and sort this within 3 years. You've got 3 years to do it. Here's what you've got to do. Here's what you've got to do. Parliament's gone and said, this is what you do. And they've gone away to the people who run the system and they've said, get it sorted. And you've got 3 years to do it. And they've come back saying, oh, we didn't have the time. We don't know what we're doing. It's all dependent. It's always somebody else's fault. There's no joined up thing and there's no responsibility. And I mean, the guy who was talking on the Scottish one of the questions he was asked him, and I actually thought that the Scottish ministers did a very good job of questioning and were very direct. But one of the things they asked him was, what would you have done differently if you'd known about the complexities earlier? And he didn't say, I would have asked for more resources. I would have employed more people to get it done within the time frame. He said, I would have told people it would take longer.
Oh, Jesus.
Thinking, at what point do you say to somebody, the law has said to you, you've got 3 years to get this sorted, and you're going to turn around and say, no, I can't be bothered to do it in 3 years. I want longer. I didn't really, I was like...
But David, I think that gives you the mindset and the attitude of people who are in this world of education. Sarah and I joke all the time in our business, right? All right, pensions, give it 8. We'll have it sorted. Give us 6 months. Because we make things happen at speed. The world of business and the world of education and what, it's a different world. I'd have, seriously, I'm not being a dickhead. I'd have had it sorted in 6 months.
COVID struck and you had teachers giving online lessons within days of being told that they had to do it. They'd got the system set up. They'd got it all organised. They were doing it. Yes, there were problems. Gosh, wouldn't there be? But they were finding solutions. They were getting things done. I mean, as a classroom teacher, you know, when that bell goes, you've got 30 kids coming in through that door and they want to be taught something. They want to be educated.
But here's the interesting thing, David. We did all of that. We were incredibly live. We changed our way. We were pivoting on spots and everything. And then it's gone right back to how it was before. We've not really got any legacies where education has changed as a result of what we were doing in COVID. We went right back to where we were before.
So cycling back to that, can I just throw a question? Because isn't it Tata that are taking over the administration of the scheme next year from Capita? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Is that going to, in your unofficial opinion, going to complicate matters, make it better, make it worse? Do we have no idea?
I'm afraid that my very cynical view is they will be able to use that as a reason for further delay. I'm afraid, it's one of those ones that I think most of the same people are moving across, in terms of you're not changing generally the personnel involved in what's happening because, the two being moving things across. And what they say about digitizing things, because it sounds horrendous. Scotland sounds like they're still using paper-based systems, which did seem to be very strange to me. But I think it's just going to be another one of those things that would say, it's the handover problem that's causing us delays. And I do struggle to think that they're going to do anything other than it cause a further delay. I can't see any reason why it would speed it up.
Has anybody, I don't know much about this, so I'm going to ask a stupid question. Has nobody grouped together and started to threaten to sue them?
Oh, the problem is, to sue somebody, you've got to show that the law has been broken and that something has gone wrong. And the law is phrased that you've given them these deadlines, and then there's a get-out clause in the law, which says you're allowed to have a longer deadline if you can say something is complex. And so this word complex has been thrown around like confetti over every single aspect of the scheme, and it's being used. And do you know what? The problem is, it's all back to the government. The government have come up with the rules. They were given 18 months to come up with the rules. They took the full 18 months. On the 31st of October, on the final day, they gave the rules to the administrators. And then the administrators had to come up with how to implement those rules. So they used all the time they could to get the rules in place. And one of these says, if you find it too complicated, come back to us and ask us for an extension. And so Capita have gone, it's too complicated. We want an extension. They go back to the DFE, and the DFE goes, take a few more months, take another 4 months. Went back to March. It's now back to October. The Scottish people sat in front of this. It's going to take until 2027 to get it finished. And yet the deadline was March 2025 under the legislation. So it's been pushed back. It's going to be pushed back 2 years.
Wow.
And the problem is the legislation is there to say you can do it if you get permission from the people who caused the problem in the first place.
The police themselves.
Yeah. Marking their own homework, I believe, is the next question.
That was what I put in a letter to my MP. I said, can you believe of any organisation that should not be allowed to mark its own homework? The DFE really should understand that.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a couple of final questions, David. Piece of advice that you would give somebody, you talked about the ECTs, you talked about those young people coming into the profession, the very lifeblood of our future. Give them a granddad golden nugget, please, about the pension scheme.
Oh, right. For the new scheme, if you've started since 2015, stay in it as long as you can. There's no special considerations. If you do have to come out, do not stay out for more than 5 years, because if you stay out for 5 years or more than 5 years, you lose this 1.6% bonus that adds up over a long career. So career average scheme, if you start at 2015, there is no advantage in taking a break. If you do have to take a break, get back in as soon as possible. For the final salary scheme, get along to my website, get along to the Facebook group, and ask people about the things you need to be looking at.
Yeah, I'm really going to advocate for that. There are some superb guides and really obviously easy to use spreadsheets that sit along some really helpful videos. David's resources are really, really good for kind of, from a layman's perspective, explaining to fellow laymen what is happening.
I'm afraid it's almost like I'm a teacher, isn't it?
It's almost like you are, David.
So, David, it's Teachers' Pensions, Teachers' Pensions - Teacher to Teacher UK. And has it got like a signpost as the profile pictures?
Yes,
it has.
there's a signpost, the profile picture. Mind you, if you just search for me, if you just search for David Fountain and Teachers' Pensions on the website, on Google or where other search engines are available, then you will find me, and you can find my website, and I signpost you to it from there.
Oh, thank you. And you've been so good. You're one of those people like me and Sarah that even though it's a large group, if people message you, you get back to them personally. You've helped me out in the past. And I do like the relationship between the two groups. It's quite lovely. You will send people back to us. We will send them to you. It is beautiful. And I want to thank you for the time you've spent with us today. People know where you are. They can get in touch with you. And on behalf of myself and Sarah David, I want to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you, because I have nothing but the utmost respect for you and Sarah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Right, thanks, listeners. We will see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thanks for staying with us during another great episode of the Pit Pony podcast. And on behalf of myself, Sarah Dunwood, Mike Roberts at Making Digital Real, we wish you all the very best, and we'll see you soon. If you wish to contact me directly for a support session or a clarity call for your next steps, please find my link in the comments below. See you soon.